So based on Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, verses number 1 to 5, the starting of Bhakti Yoga chapter, we'll try to understand the importance of Bhakti Yoga and what is problem with impersonalistic meditation. So let us start with the prayers. All of you can recite. Namavam Vishnu Padaya.
Namavam Vishnu Padaya.
Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale.
Krishna Presthaya Bhutale.
Srimate Bhakti Vedanta.
Srimate Bhakti Vedanta.
Swamin iti namine.
Swamin iti namine.
Namaste Saraswate Deve.
Namaste Saraswate Deve.
Gauravani Pracharine.
Gauravani Pracharine.
Nirvishesha Shunyavadi.
Nirvishesha Sunyavadi.
Paschatya Deshatarine.
Paschatya Deshatarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Prabhu Nityananda.
Prabhu Nityananda.
Shri Advaita Gadadhara.
Shri Advaita Gadadhara.
Srivasadi Gauravaktarunda.
Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrunda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So starting from 12th chapter, this perspective is entirely Krishna is trying to conclude the Bhakti Yoga perspective, because this chapter will be the last in the Bhakti Yoga series. So in the 11th chapter, 54th verse, Krishna said, only by Bhakti one can understand Krishna. So what is that Bhakti and how to practice that Bhakti? What are the qualities of the devotee who has come to that platform? All these things will be elaborated in this chapter. So what is the basis for this chapter? Based on Prabhupada's teachings, we understand. So after hearing of Lord's inestimable impersonal opulences, Arjuna again wants to hear about devotional service and to clarify his position as a devotee who works for Krishna as opposed to a jnani who renounces work. To clarify his position as being attached to the personal form of Krishna as superior to the universal form. Because people think that universal form is more significant, because in the 11th chapter, Krishna said, I will give you the divine eyes to perceive that universal form. So they say by normal eyes, you are able to see Krishna form. So with the divine eyes, you will be able to see universal form, means universal form is supreme. So with that perspective, Arjuna is saying, no, you please clarify which of your forms is supreme. Actually, Arjuna is clearly in understanding, but for our purpose. So he puts forward this doubt. So in the 12th chapter, the Lord says, among all processes, pure bhakti, having the greatest power, enables one to quickly attain the Lord. See, the importance of bhakti principle has been elaborated in this 12th chapter, especially. So starts with the question by Arjuna. All of you can recite. Arjuna Vacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Evam Satata Yuktaye.
Evam Satata Yuktaye.
Bhaktastvam Paryupasate.
Bhaktastvam Paryupasate.
Echapi Aksharam Avyaktam.
Echapi Aksharam Avyaktam.
Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha.
Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha.
Once again. Arjuna Vacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Evam Satata Yuktaye.
Evam Satata Yuktaye.
Bhaktastvam Paryupasate.
Bhaktastvam Paryupasate.
Echapi Aksharam Avyaktam.
Aksharam Avyaktam.
Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha.
Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha.
So here Krishna is saying, Arjuna Vacha, Arjuna is inquiring from Krishna. Evam Satata Yuktaye, those who are always engaged. Bhaktastvam Paryupasate, in your devotional service, bhakti. Or Yachapi Aksharam Avyaktam, or those who are engaged in your impersonal worship. Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha, who is properly situated, who is the best. Either those who worship your personal form or those who worship your impersonal form. So that is the question that is put forward. Arjuna is inquiring, Evam satata yukta ke yoga vittama tesham. Of the two, who is the best? Who is more perfect? Yoga vittamaha means who is the best in the yoga. Who, those who are properly engaged in your devotional service, ye bhakta tvam paryupasate, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, ye chapi avyaktam aksharam, the unmanifested, who worship the impersonal Brahman. So with this perspective, there are two classes of transcendentalists, because both of them have been liberated from these three modes. Both of them are considered as transcendentalists. Only thing is, one enters into the Vaikuntha, the other enters into the Brahman part. So that's why both are named as transcendentalists. Both impersonalists and personalists are also transcendentalists. Personalist means he engages with all his energy in the service of the Lord. They worship Supreme Lord directly by devotional service. Impersonalist means he engages in meditation on the unmanifested impersonal Brahman. And the process is they engage only in meditation. So what is the significance of bhakti or devotional service? If one at all desires to have association of the Supreme Lord, then he must take to devotional service only. Because 11.54 Krishna has already mentioned. Bhaktya tu ananyaya sakya aham evam vido arjuna. Only by bhakti you can understand me, you can reach me. So there are different ways to realize the absolute truth, but Krishna indicates that bhakti yoga or devotional service to him is the highest. See, karma, jnana, astanga, bhakti. So of all these four, bhakti is the best. That's what Krishna is emphasizing here in this chapter. And it is the most direct and easiest means for association with the Godhead. So why it is best, Krishna will clarify. So what were the conclusions of Bhagavad Gita till now? What we have understood? We are in the 12th chapter. So personal devotion to Krishna is recommended as the highest form of spiritual realization. The chapter 2, it is mentioned, living entity is spiritual spark, absolute truth is spiritual whole. And 6th chapter, last sloka, Krishna says, Bhakti Yoga is the best of all the yogis. The 7th chapter, Krishna said, living entity is part and parcel of the whole, recommends one to transfer his full attention to the whole. The 8th chapter, anyone who thinks of Krishna at the time of death, 8.5, Antakale cha mam eva, one goes to the spiritual sky to the abode of Krishna. Smaran mukta kalevaram. So when he quits, he will automatically come back to me. Now Arjuna wants to know which of the above two types of transcendentalists is more perfect in knowledge. So he is clarifying his own position because he is attached to the personal form and he is not attached to the impersonal Brahman. So he wants to secure whether his position is correct or not. So what will be the destination of impersonal manifestation? So they will be either in the material world or in the spiritual world. It's a problem for meditation, impersonal manifestation itself. Because one cannot properly conceive of the impersonal future. It's only imagination. So Arjuna is saying, why such a waste of time? What is the use of such a waste of time? So what is the significance of Arjuna's question to Krishna? So Arjuna will clarify the distinction between impersonal and personal aspects of the Lord. Because Arjuna experienced in the 11th chapter that to be attached to the personal form is the best, because he could thus understand all the other forms at the same time and there was no disturbance to his love for Krishna. But as soon as he saw the impersonal form, as soon as he saw the universal form, Arjuna became very disturbed. He started fearing, he started trembling, he started offering obeisances. His relationship, his love with the Lord got disturbed. So that is the perspective in which Arjuna is putting forward. Like in one purport, Prabhupada says, the impersonalists think of absolute truth in two different ways. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in his Vishwarupa, all pervading universal form. And on the other, they think of Lord's unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to these two conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle, but both of them are rejected by the learned, pure devotees of the Lord. So both of them are rejected. All this thinking in the universal form or thinking that Lord is inconceivable, both are unmanifested form are rejected by the devotees.
When sometimes God is described as impersonal, that doesn't mean that he has no personality. He has his personality, but he is not a person like us. He is not a person like us. That is called impersonal. Impersonal does not mean that he has no personality, but the experience of our personality, God is not like that. In the Vedas they are very nicely explained. Pashyati achakhu, God sees, but he has no eyes. Sunati akarna, he has no ears, but he can hear. If he cannot hear, then what is the use of our offering prayer? He hears, but he does not hear like us. We cannot hear in a distant place a few years. But God, He is in His kingdom. Still, if you offer prayer, He can hear. That is God. Sinoti akarna pashyati achakhu. He is seeing everything, every action of your activities. But that kind of eyes, seeing everything, not only of my activities, your activities, his activities, everyone's activities. We haven't got such eyes. Therefore, when he is spoken of that he has no eyes, that means he has no eyes like us. It is to achakhu. He hasn't got eyes like this. I cannot see more than 100 feet. But he can see everywhere. Sarvatu panipadastha. He has got his hands and legs everywhere. He has got his eyes everywhere.
So, next verse. Now, on the question of Arjuna, Krishna clarifies which is the best. All of you can recite the verse. Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam.
Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam.
Nitya Yukta Upasate.
Nitya Yukta Upasate.
Shraddhaya Parayopetas.
Shraddhaya Parayopetas.
Teme Yuktatama Mataha.
Teme Yuktatama Mataha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam.
Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam.
Nitya Yukta Upasate.
Nitya Yukta Upasate.
Shraddhaya Parayopetas.
Shraddhaya Parayopetas.
Teme Yuktatama Mataha.
Teme Yuktatama Mataha.
So, Shri Bhagavan Vacha. So, Lord Krishna is giving answer. Maya Vesha Mano Yema. Those whose minds are always fixed upon me. Nitya Yukta Upasati. Those who engage in my devotion service regularly. Shraddhaya, with faith. Parayopetaha, with transcendental engagement. Teme Yukta Tamamata. He is the best of the transcendentalists. The Blessed Lord said, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, he whose mind is fixed, Emai Mana Aveshya, on my personal form, always engaged in worshipping me, Nitya Yukta Mam Upasate, with great and transcendental faith, Shraddhaya Parayopetaha, he is considered by me to be the most perfect. Te Yuktatama iti me mataha. So in answer to Arjuna's question, Krishna clearly says that he who concentrates upon his personal form and who worships him with faith and devotion is to be considered most perfect in yoga. So for one in such Krishna consciousness, there are no material activities because everything is done by Krishna. So in that way, he is clearly in safe position. And devotees, pure devotees are always in samadhi because they constantly engage either in chanting, hearing or reading about Krishna either cooking or go to the marketplace to purchase or whatever activity they do, since they are doing only for the purpose of satisfaction of Krishna, they are constantly in the state of samadhi or constant meditation. Because whatever he does not let a single moment pass without devoting his activities for Krishna. That's why he is always in samadhi. So in one lecture, Prabhupada says, now here the word yogam is explained. And what sort of yoga Krishna is recommending? Maya asakta manaha. Keeping the mind always attached to Krishna. This is yoga system. This Krishna consciousness is yoga system. At the present day, they are concentrating their mind on something void, impersonal, according to their own prescription. The real process is to concentrate the mind on something, but that something, if we make it void, it is very difficult to concentrate our mind in that way. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Klesho adhikataras tesham. Those who are trying to meditate on something impersonal and void, their trouble is greater than those who are meditating on the Supreme Person. This is explained why avyaktahi gatir dukkam deha vadbir avapyate. We cannot concentrate our mind something impersonal. If you think of your friend, if you think of your father, mother, or somebody whom you love, you can continue such thinking for hours together. But if you have no objective to fix your mind, then it is very difficult. But people are being taught to concentrate on something void and impersonal. So in reply to that mode of yoga, Krishna is directly speaking here, Maya Sakta Manaha. If you try to concentrate your mind on the form of Krishna, so beautiful, he is enjoying with Radharani and his associate. So simple perspective. Like if you want to meditate, you should concentrate. If you have a person, his form, all these things and all, you'll be able to easily relate. But if something, if it is a void, something unexplainable, imperfect, impersonal, how you can concentrate for a long time? You'll not be able to do meditation on a long time. Next, one more place, Prabhupada says. Especially in Bharatavarsha, this culture was very strong. Although there are different parties, different acharyas, their only purpose is self-realization. Either we follow Shankaracharya, Ramanuja, or Madhvacharya, many acharyas. We may differ in our final conclusion, whether ultimate truth is person or imperson. That is not very important thing, but all of them are trying to realization of the self. The yogis, jnanis and bhaktas, even the karmis, they are trying to become siddha. Siddhi lavaha. But the difference between the bhaktas and others, namely karmis, jnanis and yogis, there is little difference. And what is the difference? The devotees are peaceful and others are disturbed. Klesho adhikataras tesham. They are very troublesome. They have accepted very troublesome method. Karmi, it is also very troublesome. Jnani, it is also very troublesome. And yogis, very troublesome. But the bhaktas, the 9th chapter, susukum kartum avye. Very pleasing to execute. The path of bhakti is very easy and pleasing. So why it is easy and pleasing? Shravanam kirtanam Vishnu. You have to simply hear. You haven't got to exercise. You haven't got to press your nose or make your head down and your legs up and starve. So many other things. It's very easy. Simply sit down wherever you are and hear about Krishna. So this was one situation where in Ramayana we come across Jatayu, how he had served the Lord Ramachandra. So Jatayu was a bird, vulture, but very great personality, but like a heavy personality. But he was an elderly person. So when he met Ravana, he was very old. He is known as the king of the vultures. But he was not strong to that time because he has become elderly. He saw Sita was in trouble and she was calling for help. So Jatayu did not hesitate for a moment also to protect her. But it was not to save her, but to serve her was his intention. So Jatayu did not think that he could not save Sita. He wanted to serve her. So there is a difference. We always think we are saving the satsang program with all our association, but it says that it is good to remember that we are just a servant and not a servitor. So we cannot do anything except to serve. So Jatayu, he flew to the sky and started fighting with Ravana because he wanted to serve Lord Ramachandra. He said, my body is of no value if it is not used in the service of the Lord. The Lord's most precious wife, Mother Sita, is being kidnapped. It is my duty to stop the situation. So Jatayu fought with Ravana and gave him for a good run for his money. Once with his claws, he started scratching Ravana Ravana's body, he started creating trouble in his body. He made it so difficult for Ravana for a while and thought that Mother Sita is going to be out of the demon king. But Ravana's strength came back. He chopped off the wings and limbs of Jatayu. Jatayu fell down with entire body bleeding and his life was going away slowly. So when his life was going away, Lord Ramachandra and Lakshmana came there. So seeing Jatayu, they thought he must be the demon who was trying to catch Sita. But they approached with precaution. When they saw actually Jatayu was dying because of Ravana, Lord Rama's heart was in pain. Jatayu praised Lord Ramachandra, "My dear Lord, please forgive me that I could not execute my service to the best of my ability. I had failed in my service. But I tried, and I could tell you from my knowledge of Shastra, the time in which he is leaving now is auspicious time. Whatever you have lost in this time, you will get it back." So Jatayu, even in that condition, tried to serve Lord Ramachandra by uttering sweet words to pacify the Lord. So he didn't have to do this because he's already dying. Even then, he did not think, "My Lord, I tried to serve you. Now I am dying. What kind of a Lord you are?" He did not question all these things about. Generally, we question, if I am in trouble, why Lord? Why me? Because we think that if we do something, we must get back something. So this is our perception of bhakti. Every time when we come to Krishna, Krishna is very nice, but I need this, I need this. We generally put a big list in front of Krishna. But we don't realize our real prayer to Krishna should never be in that form. So from Jatai's perspective, we see he did a nice service to the Lord. The point is whether he became successful or not. By his actions we can see Lord Ramachandra treated Jatayu as his father and he finished the final funeral ceremony as a devoted son. So at the time when the Jatayu's body is being burnt, Lord Ramachandra says, "Today the loss of Jatayu is more painful than the loss of Sita." So this is how Lord Krishna or Lord Ramachandra values the service of the devotees. And that service was also done with great eagerness. Jatayu fought like an young man. He had done his service with devotion and meditating on Lord Ramachandra. And the result might be Jatayu did not die in vain, but pacified by the darshan of Lord Ramachandra. So in that way, we have to see all our endeavor should be for the satisfaction of the Lord, not for any personal gain. That should be the mood in which we should engage in devotional service. Okay. Next, all of you can recite. Now, see, when Krishna is saying there are two processes, A and B, he's saying one of the processes is best. Now, he is going to delineate why that process is best and the problem with the other process. Now, the details about Avyakta worship have been mentioned here. 3, 4, 5. In these 3 verses, Avyakta worship will be described. And what is the problem with Avyakta worship is also enumerated. So, let us recite the verse. Etu aksharam anirdeshyam.
Etu aksharam anirdeshyam.
Avyaktam paryupasate.
Avyaktam paryupasate.
Sarvatragam achintyam cha.
Sarvatragam achintyam cha.
Kutastam achalam dhruvam.
Kutastam achalam dhruvam.
Sanniyamyendriya gramam.
Sanniyamyendriya gramam.
Sarvatra samabuddhayaha.
Sarvatra samabuddhayaha.
Te prapnuvanti mameva.
Te prapnuvanti mameva.
Sarvabhuta hite rataha.
Sarvabhuta hite rataha.
Once again, etu aksharam anirdeshyam.
Etu aksharam anirdeshyam.
Avyaktam paryupasate.
Avyaktam paryupasate.
Sarvatragam achintyam cha.
Sarvatragam achintyam cha.
Kutastam achalam dhruvam.
Kutastam achalam dhruvam.
Sanniyamyendriya gramam.
Sanniyamyendriya gramam.
Sarvatra samabuddhayaha.
Sarvatra samabuddhayaha.
Te prapnuvanti mameva.
Te prapnuvanti mameva.
Sarva bhuta hite rataha. So here Krishna is saying, Etu Aksharam. Aksharam means that which is beyond the sense perception. Anirdesham, which is indefinite. Avyaktam, which is unmanifested. Paripaste, those who engage in the service of this unmanifested. Sarvatragam, spread everywhere. Achintyam, inconceivable. Kutastam, he is in the center. Achalam, immovable. Dhruvam, fixed. If he meditates on this perspective with following actions, Sanniyamyendriya Gramam, whose senses are controlled, Sarvatra Samabuddhayaha, equally disposed towards all living entities, Te Prapnavanti Mameva, at the end, he will reach me, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha, who is a well-wisher of all living entities. So if you see the translation. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, Yetu avyaktam paryupasate, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, aksharam, the all-pervading, sarvatragam, anirdeshyam, inconceivable, achintyam, fixed, dhruvam, and immovable, kutastam, achalam, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth by controlling the various senses, sanniyamyendriya gramam, and being equally disposed to everyone, sarvatra samabuddhayaha. Such persons engaged in the welfare of all, sarva bhuta hite rataha, at last achieve me. Te mameva prapnuvanti. So what is the destination of those who indirectly worship Krishna? Ultimately achieve the supreme goal, Krishna, but it is a long process. How? In the earlier it said, Bahunam Janmanam, and after many lifetimes, when they come to the proper stage, by the mercy of a pure devotee, they become attached to the personal form. Only then they will go reach Krishna. Vasudeva Sarmaviti. To come to that platform is Bahunam Janmanamati. Many lifetimes it will take. So how to worship this unmanifested is to control the senses, render service to everyone, engage in the welfare of all beings. So if it is inferred that one has to approach Lord Krishna, otherwise there is no perfect realization. So there is much penance involved, but one fully surrenders unto him. So there is so much penance before one fully surrenders. So what one should do to perceive the super soul? So one has to cease the sensual activities. Then one comes to the understand that the super soul is present everywhere. So realizing this, he envies no living entity. He sees no difference between man or animal. He sees only the spirit platform. But for the common man, this realization of impersonal is very difficult. So the characteristics of impersonal Brahman, as explained in this verse, is unmanifested, avyakta, beyond sense perception, aksharam, all-pervading, anirdeshyam, then sarvatragam, all-pervading, inconceivable, achintyam, unchanging, kutastam, fixed, achalam, immovable, dhruvam. See, in one morning walk, Prabhupada says, Evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupaste. Prabhupada, Maya asakta mana. This is the stress, Maya asakta. Here I am present. Why you should contemplate on imperson? But the foolish person will not understand this. Namam dishkritano mudaha. He is canvassing. Here I am, but they will not surrender. They are searching out God somewhere else. But here I am. Krishna is saying, oh Muda. Mr. Sir, Mudas, yes. Dr. Patel, ye to aksharam anirdesham. Prabhupada, Muda, sab Muda. Dr. Patel, they are all Mudas. Kutastam achalam dhruvam. Prabhupada. But where is Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha? He is engaged in his family Hita Rataha, country Hite Rataha, community Hite Rataha. Then how can he do? Dr. Patel. So in this Bhagavan, he said Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Prabhupada. But Sarva Bhuta Hite Raha, now people, they are Hite Rataha of limited circle, that's all. Mr. Sir, oh, that is why their path is not good for mankind. Prabhupada, yes, therefore, according to Vedic civilization, one must accept sannyasa at a certain age. Prabhupada. Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha, that is very difficult because even Mahatma Gandhi, he said, Englishmen go away, just see, who can be better than Mahatma Gandhi? So here is the root. Aham adirhi devanam, aham sarvasya pravaha. The root, if you water the root, then Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Water will go to the branches, to the twigs, to the leaves, to the flowers. They do not know the way how to become Sarvabhuta Hite. Just see the example. I am not becoming proud, but because I have got little taste for it, therefore I am preaching all over the world. I don't say I am perfect. I have got little taste of Krishna Bhakti. So I have no distinction. Here is Indian, American, African. Everyone I am giving this Harinama. This is Sarvabhuta Hite Rata. No distinction. We are trying to give protection to the cows, to the animals, to the trees. This is Sarvabhuta Hite Rata. Unless one is devoted to Krishna, he cannot become Sarvabhuta Hite Rata. Klesho adhikataras tesham. Simply they will suffer, that's all. So this avyakta, they do not find where is the point where Sarvabhuta Hite Rataha is. Just like one who knows the electric button, he push. He does not know that. That's why they are mudas. So simple. Sarvabhuta Hite Rataha, if they can apply, then only they become successful in their impersonalistic understanding. If there is no audio for this, we'll just skip this part. So the last verse for today, all of you can recite. Klesho adhikatarastesham.
Klesho adhikatarastesham.
Avyakta sakta chetasam.
Avyakta sakta chetasam.
Avyakta hi gatir dukkam.
Avyakta hi gati dukkham.
Dehavaddir avapyate.
Dehavaddir avapyate.
Klesho adhikatarastesham.
Klesho adhikatarastesham.
Avyakta sakta chetasam.
Avyakta sakta chetasam.
Avyakta hi gatir dukkam.
Avyakta hi gati dukkham.
Dehavaddir avapyate.
Dehavaddir avapyate.
So Krishna is concluding what is the problem with impersonal understanding. He says, Klesho adhikataraha tesham. Of those who are worshipping this avyakta sakta chetasam, those who are very much interested in this unmanifested impersonal worship, they end only in klesha adhikataraha. They end only in more problems. Avyaktahi gatir dukkam. The destination of this impersonal worship is misery. Simply gatir dukkam. End is only dukkam, distress. For whom dehavadbir avapyate. For those who are having accepted this form of this material body, for them the impersonal process is simply a disturbance. So for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested avyakta sakta chetasam, impersonal future of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. Tesham adhikatara klesha bhavati. And to make progress in the discipline is always difficult. Avyaktahi gating dukkam hi avapyate. For whom? For those who are embodied. Yata dehavadbihi. Because we have accepted a form. Our spirit has a form, that's why we have a material form. And you are trying to go against the principle of what is your form, and you are saying, I'll merge into I'll meditate on that impersonal. That's why the problem is simply it's a disturbance. Because you are not meant for that quality. So who are jnana yogis and bhakti yogis? So those who worship inconceivable impersonal form are called as jnana yogis. And those who engage in Krishna consciousness in devotional service are considered as bhakti yogis. So what is the difference between both of them? The process of jnana ultimately brings one to the same goal, but it is very troublesome. But the process of bhakti is a direct service, Lord, and it is easier and natural for the embodied soul. Because the individual soul is embodied since time immemorial, it is very difficult for him to simply theoretically understand that he is not the body. Bhakti yogi accepts the deity of Krishna as worshipable because there is some bodily conception fixed in the mind which can be applied. So is the worship of the deity in the temple idol worship? So it is not an ideal worship because Krishna is personally present in that deity and he reciprocates according to the feelings. So why does Lord incarnate as Aksha Vigraha? Because Lord is all-powerful, omnipotent, and by his incarnation as Aksha Vigraha, he can accept the service of the devotees. So that our conditioned life becomes convenient. Like Prabhupada gives an example, authorized mailbox, post office boxes can deliver the letters without any difficulty. But any imitation box which is not authorized by post office will not work. So what are the difficulties in this path of impersonal realization compared to devotees? To understand the unmanifested representation through Vedic literatures as Upanishads, they have to learn the Sanskrit language, they have to understand the non-perceptual feelings and realize all these processes. So there is no doubt they are accepting a troublesome path with the risk of not realizing the absolute truth at the ultimate end, every chance of failure. But a devotee engaged in bhakti on the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master and by offering respectful obeisances to the deities and by simply hearing about the glories of the Lord and eating of the prasadam remnants offered to the deity, he realizes the Lord very easily. And there is no risk involved, or trouble or difficulty, and he directly approaches the Supreme Lord personally. So why is the perfection of impersonal is incomplete? Because living entity is an individual soul. If he wants to merge into the Supreme Whole, he may accomplish the aspects of his original nature, but the blissful portion is not realized. Only eternal and knowledgeable aspects are covered in this path. Sat Chit Ananda, only Sat and Chit he will be able to experience. There is no Ananda there. So what are the practical problems for impersonalists? So by the grace of some devotee, the transcendentalists highly learned in the process of Jnana Yoga may come to the point of Bhakti Yoga. And because of the long practice of impersonalism, that becomes a trouble for the to give up that idea of impersonalistic philosophy. So therefore, embodied soul is always in difficulty with the unmanifest, both at the time of practice and at the time of realization also. So what is the conclusion suggested by Lord Krishna? So every living entity is partially independent, and one should know for certain this unmanifested realization is against the nature of his spiritual self. So every living entity which entails full engagement in devotion service, this is the best way for every living entity. But if he wants to ignore bhakti, there is a danger of turning to atheism. He becomes a Nastika. So the process of centering attention on the unmanifested, inconceivable, beyond the senses, as expressed in this verse, should never be encouraged at any time, especially in the age of Kali. Like in one purport, Prabhupada says, this is Bhishma Deva's prayers in 1st canto, 9th chapter. So in that great assembly, Lord Krishna was cynosure of neighboring eyes. Everyone wanted to see Lord Krishna and everyone wanted to pay his humble respects to the Lord. Bhishma Deva remembered all this and was glad that his worshipable Lord was present before him in his actual form when Bhishma was about to quit. So to meditate on the Supreme Lord is to meditate on his activities, form, pastimes, name and fame of the Lord. This is easier than what is imagined as meditation on the impersonal future. In the Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is clearly stated, meditate upon the impersonal future is very difficult. It is practically no meditation or simply a waste of time because very seldom is the desired result obtained. The devotees meditate on the Lord's factual form and therefore the Lord is easily approachable by the devotees. Like one more place Prabhupada says on one lecture, Samadhi means not to make void. That is impossible. Some yogis say you stop yourself, you become motionless. So how it is possible to become motionless? I am a moving spirit. It is not possible. Motionless means when you are fixed up in Krishna, there is no other material motion. These material propensities will not be any more disturbing. The more you increase your activities in Krishna, you become automatically motionless in material activities. But if you want to make motionless, same example, a child is restless. You cannot make the child motionless. You give him something, plaything, nice picture, he becomes engaged. So that is the way. So people are motionless, moving. But if you want to make him motionless, give him Krishna engagement. Then he will become motionless. So that is realization. Why he should be engaged in Krishna consciousness unless he realizes I am Krishna's, I am not part of this matter. I am not this nation, I am not this society, or I am not this basket. I am simply Krishna's part. That is full knowledge. Like Bhagavatam, Prabhupada quotes this shloka many places. Yat pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya karmasayam gratitam udgatayanti santaha Tadvanna rikta matayo yatayopi rudaha shrota kanastam aranam bhaja vasudev. So, yat pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya, one who engages in the devotional service of the lotus feet of the Lord. Karmasayam gratitam udgratayanti santaha. Those devotees who are free from this karmasayam, fruitive activities. That is gratitam. It is like a hard knot. And they can easily cross over. Udgratayanti santaha, the devotees. Tadvanna rikta matayo yatayopi ruda. So, because of this, it is very difficult for those who are ruda shrota ganaha, that the jnanis and the non-devotees, yogis and jnanis, they try to stop these waves of sense gratification, but it is very difficult for them. Therefore, it is advised, tam aranam bhaja vasudevam. One is advised to engage the devotional service of Lord Vasudeva. Similarly, one more place it says, 10th canto, Lord Brahma's prayers, he says, Shreya Shrutim Bhakti Mudasyate Vibo Klishyanti Ye Kevala Bodha Labdaye Tesha Maso Kleshala Eva Shishyate Nanyad Yata Stula Tushava Ghatina. So he said, my dear Vibo, O Lord, Bhaktim Shreya Shrutim. Bhakti is the best, is the auspicious path. But if one gives up Udasyate, for what? Ye Kevala Bodha Labdaye, for speculating on this knowledge or understanding that the living entity and the material world is false, it is klishyanti, it is simply a great deal of trouble. And he only gains troublesome and inauspicious activities. Tesham also kleshala eva shishyate. Simply he is engaging, all his activities are only troublesome. Yata stula tusha avagatinam, just like beating husk. Our endeavor, we may beat the husk many number of times because they are right, it is devoid of rice. His labor is become fruitless. Na anyad.
According to the body, made a covering of this hand, and this looks like a hand. This covering of the chest looks like a chest. Therefore, the impersonal means the material covering. Otherwise, spirit soul is person. Just like you go to the tailor, according to your body, the tailor will cut a coat. This coat, ingredients of the coat, the cloth, that is impersonal. But it is made like a person, covering of the person. In other words, the spirit soul is person. As much as God is also person. Imperson means the covering. Try to understand. The covering is impersonal, not the living being who is covered. He is not impersonal, he is person. Very simple example. The coat shirt is impersonal, but the man who is putting on coat and he is not impersonal. He is person. So, how God can be impersonal? The material energy is impersonal. That is explained. That is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Maya tatamidam sadvam jagat abbaktamurti. This jagat is abbaktam, impersonal. And that is also energy of Krishna. Therefore he says, I am expanded in the impersonal form. That impersonal feature is Krishna's energy. So the material covering is impersonal, but the spirit soul or the super soul is personal. Any question in this? Very
The simple perspective. So till now, whatever we have heard about personal and impersonal. So in terms of practice, the difference between personal and impersonal. So impersonal is they meditate on formless, personal is they meditate on the form of deity. The process is difficult for embodied, but easy for the embodied. So for the impersonalist, the unmanifested is beyond the senses. But here devotees can perceive the deity within the senses and the sound of the mantra. So impersonalists are regulated the senses, but devotees engage the senses in the service of the Lord. So impersonalists must understand Brahman through Upanishads. They should learn the language of Sanskrit and they should understand the non-perspectual feelings. But the devotees, they understand Krishna through devotional service by bona fide spiritual master and by chanting Hare Krishna and by eating prasadam, by hearing about the Lord. So the long practice of impersonal makes it difficult to take up bhakti. So bhakti is a natural principle in personalist form. For the impersonalists, it is troublesome because they have no relation with the Lord. So for the personalists, miseries are mitigated by relationship with Krishna. They do not perceive it as a misery. For the impersonalist, he depends upon his own endeavor. But for the personalist, Krishna delivers the devotee from Maya. Why? Because Krishna himself recommends the process out of his paternal love for the living, for the jiva, for the devotee, and by his causeless mercy. This is in the state of practice. This is in terms of realization. So Brahman realization means nirguna, Bhagavan realization means saguna, with form and with qualities. Brahman means inconceivable, Bhagavan means he possesses inconceivable potencies. Brahman is all-pervading, Bhagavan by his energy as super soul, he is all-pervading. Brahman cannot be pursued by any opulence because of lack of activity. The Lord can be pursued by all his 6 opulences in full. So the risk of not realizing absolute truth at the end is always there in impersonal. The success is guaranteed and there is nothing lost in this process, in the process of Bhagavan Bhakti. He realizes only the Sat and Chit, eternal and knowledge part, and partially, and also this also of partial nature only he will be able to experience. He realizes to the fullest extent of Sat, Chit and Ananda in the Bhagavan future. So these are the differences between personal and impersonal understanding. So any questions, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the session. During the session, I got one doubt that are there any impersonal living entities in this material nature?
There is nobody, because by default, spirit has a form. Lord's creation cannot be incomplete, no?
Yes.
So the Lord is a person and the Lord's creation is complete to itself. Like there is one statement in Bible which says, man is made in the image of God.
Yes, Prabhu.
So if the image is having form means, outside also form will be there, no?
Yes, Prabhu. But if you see subtle energy, say for example, mind, intelligence, or the modes of nature, those are, we can call it as impersonal, right?
No, they are all subtle energies, or they are all of material nature. They are not of the spirit quality, no? In a dead body, there is also mind. Will it work?
No, Prabhuji.
So they are only part of this. See, this mind, all these things, they exist only in the material world, gross and subtle bodies. Because see, spirit is a substance which is of different nature, and this material body is of a different nature. So both of them to correlate and how the spirit is engaged in this body, both are of them of different natures. So they require something called as a catalyst to work in between, interface to work between. So Paramatma is the interface. So living entity desires Paramatma according to his karma, whatever that living entity worth of, he sanctions the material nature to act accordingly. So that we will understand in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, how the living entity is bound in this body.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Then thank you all of you. We'll meet next week again. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.